I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a little bit as I move along. Right now, however, I am still in the Book of Judges. And while I will be skipping around a little bit as I get towards the end of Judges, right now I am still in chapter 8. And this will conclude the story of Gideon himself. Gideon is a great guy. And other than Samson, Gideon has more information about him in the book of Judges than any other judge. So, chapter 8. Gideon pursues and destroys Midianites. He frees Israel but refuses their invitation to reign as king over them. Gideon dies and Israel returns to idolatry. And the men of Ephraim said unto him, Why hast thou served us thus, that thou callest us not, when thou wentest to fight with the Midianites? And they did chide with him sharply. And he said unto them, What have I done now in comparison of you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God hath delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. And what was I able to do in comparison of you? Then their anger was abated towards him when he had said that. So Ephraim gets mad that they weren't able to go to war because they didn't get a share in the spoils, basically. That's really what they're getting mad at. We didn't get a share in the spoils. You went and destroyed the Midianites without us. And Gideon says, wait a minute. You got to kill the princes. You got the spoils of the princes. We just got the spoils of the army. Why are you so angry? And Ephraim thinks about it and says, oh, you're right. We got the best spoils, so it may not have been as much. You know, there were more men to spoil in the army than there were with the princes. But the princes had the more valuable stuff, so we're all good. So, verse 4. And Gideon came to Jordan and passed over, he and the 300 men that were with him, faint, yet pursuing them. And he said unto the men of Succoth, Give, I pray you, loaves of bread unto the people that follow me, for they be faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian. And the princes of Succoth said, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in mine hand, that we should give bread unto thine army? And Gideon said, Therefore, when the Lord hath delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into mine hand, then I will tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars. So we have, in the last chapter, 2 of the princes were killed, Oreb and Zeb, but Gideon is still pursuing 2 other princes, him and his 300 men. He still has his main army of 300. And they come to the city of Succoth, and they're tired, they're fatigued. And he says, give us a little food to eat so that we can catch these guys and get them. And Succoth says, no, we got nothing to do with that. And so he says, well, when we do get them, then we're coming back for you. Verse 8, And he went up thence to Penuel, and spake unto them likewise. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Succoth had answered him. And he spake also unto the men of Penuel, saying, When I come again in peace, I will break down this tower. Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor, and their hosts with them, about 15,000 men, all that were left of all the hosts of the children of the east. For there fell 120,000 men that drew sword. And Gideon went up by the way of them that dwelt in tents on the east of Nobah and Jogbeah, and smote the host, for the host was secure. And when Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued after them, and took the 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and discomfited all the host. And Gideon the son of Joash returned from the battle before the sun was up, and caught a young man of the men of Succoth, and inquired of him. And he described unto him the princes of Succoth, and the elders thereof, even 70 men. So that's 77 men. And he came unto the men of Succoth, and said, Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, with whom ye did upbraid me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thine hand, that we should give bread unto thy men that are weary? And he took the elders of the city, and thorns of the wilderness, and briars, and with them he taught the men of Succoth. Okay, let us, I like, and he beat down the tower of Penuel, and slew the men of the city. Now, this is just kind of a funny way of putting things. So, when Sukkoth refused to give him food, their reasoning was, you haven't caught the men yet. Why should we reward you when you have not yet done what you said you were going to do? That's what their reasoning was. It wasn't just that we just don't want nothing to do this. Is you don't have them yet. And so when they get them, they destroy the army, and they kill Zeba and Zalmunna. And then they come back to Sukkoth, and there's a young man outside the city, and they get a little reconnaissance. And I like this. They take the 77 elders, bring them outside the city, and whip them with thorn vines and bushes. You know, this was a scourging of the flesh. But I love the way they put that there. And with them, he taught the men of Sukkoth. This was a lesson. This wasn't just revenge. He was saying, look, you need to do what God tells you to do. You need to obey the law. And the law was to go out, was to help the army so that we could defend Israel. And now you're being scourged because you didn't follow the law. This is the punishment. And so the rest of the city of Sukkoth saw it all, and they learned their lesson. On the other hand, the Tower of Penuel, apparently Penuel was not a city, but was a military guard tower. And when they went there, because they were a military installation and refused assistance to the military, he destroyed them. He just said no. They were basically they were soldiers who were guilty of treason, and they were executed for it. That is how I understand this anyways. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding. Verse 18. Then said he unto Zeba and Zalmunna, what manner of men were they whom he slew at Tabor? And they answered, as thou art, so were they. Each one resembled the children of a king. And he said, they were my brethren, even the sons of my mother, as the Lord liveth. If ye had saved them alive, I will not slay you. And he said unto Jether, his firstborn, up and slay them. But the youth drew not his sword, for he feared, because he was yet a youth. Then Zeba and Zalmunna said, rise thou and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. And Gideon arose and slew Zeba and Zalmunna, and took away the ornaments that were on their camels' necks. Okay. So apparently I was wrong. He didn't kill the two kings. He destroyed the army, but he took the two kings captive and brought them back to show Sukkoth that he had been successful. And now that he has dealt with Sukkoth and Penuel, he says, look, you killed the men of Tabor. They were my family, so I'm going to kill you because you didn't spare them, so I'm not going to spare you. And he tells his son to carry out the execution. But his son won't do it because his son is too young. He doesn't feel quite up to the task. And so Zeba and Zalmunna taunt Gideon. Say, oh, you need a boy to take care of your job. Why don't you do it? You be a man. And so Gideon says, okay. And he kills him. Anyways, verse 22. Then the men of Israel said unto Gideon, rule thou over us, both thou and thy son's son also, for thou hast delivered us from the hand of Midian. And Gideon said unto them, I will not rule over you, neither shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you. And Gideon said unto them, I would desire a request of you, that ye would give me every man an earring of the earrings of his prey, for they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. And they answered, we will willingly give them. And they spread the garment, and did cast therein every man the earrings of his prey. And the weight of the gold earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, beside ornaments and collars, and purple raiment that was on the kings of Midian, and beside the chains that were about their camels' necks. And Gideon made an ephod thereof, and put it in his city, even in Ophrah. And all Israel went thither, a-whoring after it, which thing became a snare unto Gideon and to his house. Now this is an interesting one here. This tells us, so the children of the east are the Ishmaelites. They're not just, they're probably a mix of the descendants of Abraham's other children, but specifically here, Ishmaelites. And they had a custom of wearing earrings. As it kind of marked them as being Ishmaelites, this style of dress. I think that's interesting that it mentions this. But he takes all this stuff and he makes an ephod of it. Now, an ephod is it's a type of garment. It's a type of breastplate garment. And he hangs it in his house. And this is more, he just wants a memorial of the event. I don't think Gideon is trying to set up any kind of, it's just a war one. Well, it's a war memorial to remember. Because he refuses to be king. He refuses to let his son be king. And he's a good guy. He's a righteous man. He has no intention of causing any trouble for Israel. But the problem is, like with so many other things, Israel gets the idea that this ephod is like a god. It's like an idol to be worshipped. People start making religious pilgrimages to it. Yeah, ephod's kind of like a vest, I think. So, but they start making these religious pilgrimages to it, and it says became a snare unto the house of Gideon, because it caused problems with Israel. Gideon was a great guy. He probably kept telling the people not to do this, but they kept doing it because he set this up. So let's finish this chapter out, not too much longer. Verse 28. Thus was Midian subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads no more. And the country was in quietness 40 years in the days of Gideon. And Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. And Gideon had 70 sons of his body begotten, for he had many wives. And his concubine that was in Shechem, she also bare him a son, whose name he called Abimelech. And Gideon the son of Joash died in a good old age, and was buried in the sepulchre of Joash's father in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again, and went a-whoring after Balaam, and made Baal-berith their god. And the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side. Neither shewed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had shown unto Israel. 70 sons. He had 70 sons. That's a lot of wives. Probably had around 20 wives, an average of 3 to 4 sons per wife. Doesn't say he had daughters, but it doesn't say he didn't either, so we don't know how many kids he had. But Abimelech, the son of his concubine, is not counted as among the 70 sons. Well, possibly not counted. He may be separate from the sons, because the sons are from the wives, and Abimelech is from a concubine. And a concubine's still a wife, but of a different social class. And so they are generally referred to differently. You have the wives and you have the concubines. So Abimelech is probably not one of the 70, but he is a son of Gideon. Very large family. Gideon judges for 40 years, and almost immediately, once he dies, everybody returns to worshiping Baal. It was kind of like when he was there. He was their military commander, and he probably kept getting after him. People probably kept trying to worship Baal while he was still alive, and he kept saying, no, we're putting this down. Somebody started, nope. He followed the law. How many people did he have to execute because they were trying to worship Baal? According to the law of Moses, those who worship idols are executed. And Gideon was a good judge. He was a righteous man. And considering how swiftly the people returned to worshiping Baal after he died, I've got to wonder how many times he had to put down attempts to reestablish the worship of Baal while he was alive. Anyways, we will get into the next chapter, which continues the story. We won't continue Gideon, of course, because he's dead, but it does continue with his family for a little bit. So we will get into that next time.